Welcome aboard. Before we begin, here is where you are. You are on Halcyon Ward, a hospital station where rich travelers come to feel safe. It is clean, quiet, and heavily controlled. And that is exactly why what happens next should not be possible. In a few seconds, an emergency chime will sound. A patient will arrive under escort. The staff will be told to follow orders and look away. But one overlooked worker will notice a detail that does not belong, and one simple question will refuse to let go. Who would bring a secret into a medical bay, and why do they need it moved before anyone can save it? Stay with the story. Listen for the small choices. Because on a station built for comfort, the most dangerous thing is not the injury. It is the cover-up. The bell chimed once, low and flat, and the corridor lights snapped to emergency white. The sound was not loud, but it tightened every breath in Halcyon Ward. Calder Rook felt it before anyone explained it. He was a triage tech on a hospital station, the kind of worker people forgot the moment they stopped bleeding. He moved carts, wiped rails, and learned to hear danger in footsteps. Footsteps multiplied outside Triage Bay 3. Not the quick rhythm of nurses, but heavier steps that stayed measured, like someone wanted to be noticed. Calder rolled his cart to the doorway and stopped. Through the glass panel, shadows crossed in a steady flow. Security was already moving. On the central bed, a patient lay under a heat blanket that shimmered faintly. Calder had seen burns, crush injuries, decompression, and panic. He had not seen this. The patient was not human. Dr. Saran Vale stood at the bedside with both sleeves pushed up. She was senior trauma on this deck. She rarely looked surprised, but her mouth was set hard now, and her eyes tracked every shallow rise and fall of the patient's chest. "Calder," she said. Her voice was clipped, the way it got when she was trying not to show fear. Calder stepped in, set his cart aside, and kept his hands calm. Calm hands made people believe the next minute was survivable. "This is Envoy Savan Atri," Dr. Vale said. He arrived under escort and then collapsed. Calder looked at the envoy's throat. Under the collar ridge sat a bruise, small and precise, like pressure from a tiny injector. His gaze moved to the monitor. The numbers were bad. The trend was worse. Dr. Vale lowered her voice. "Security says this is classified. They want him sedated and moved to a sealed suite." Calder did not like the word sealed. On Halcyon Ward, sealed meant someone had decided the station was safer without witnesses. "What did you give him?" Calder asked. "Standard stabilizers," Dr. Vale said. "Nothing that should do this." Calder leaned closer. A thin white foam clung to the envoy's lips, too fine to be spit. It looked like something forming where it should not. He touched the envoy's wrist. The skin was cold, but the pulse ran hot and fast, angry under the bone. Dr. Vale watched him like she was waiting for permission to hope. "You see something?" she asked. Calder nodded once. "Not an accident." A nurse stepped in and halted at the doorway, her eyes flicking to Dr. Vale, then to Calder. "Security team in the corridor," she said. "They are coming this way." Dr. Vale's jaw tightened. "They will take him." Calder stared at the bruise again. Pressure. A tiny injector. A dose delivered in a fraction of a second. A question landed in his mind and refused to move. Who poisons an envoy on a hospital station, and why do they need him moved before anyone can stabilize him? The envoy's hand clenched, then released, like something inside the nerves had snapped. His chest hitched. A wet rattle moved through the breath. Dr. Vale's eyes widened as fear finally showed. "What do we do?" she asked. Calder lifted the blanket just enough to confirm the tremor in the muscles, then set it back with care. "He has been dosed with a microcrystal agent," he said. "It builds sharp lattices in warm tissue." Dr. Vale blinked once. "That is not possible. Those are restricted." Calder kept his tone even. Restricted is not the same as unavailable. Dr. Vale swallowed hard. How long do we have? Calder glanced at the monitor again, then at the foam, then at the bruise. 2 days, he said. Maybe less. The words landed heavy, simple, and final. 2 days was a timer you could feel in your teeth. Dr. Vale's voice dropped. Security will be here in seconds. Calder listened. The footsteps were closer now, stacking up. In the corridor like pressure behind a dam. A shadow crossed the glass panel in the door, then another. Calder reached for the supply cabinet. He moved fast without looking frantic, because frantic made mistakes. We keep him breathing, Calder said. And we keep him here long enough to slow the lattice. Dr. Vale stared at him. Security will not allow it. Calder looked back at her. His face did not change, but his meaning did. Then we do not ask, he said. Dr. Vale pulled a privacy screen halfway around the bed. It was a useless gesture, but it bought her 2 seconds of control. Calder opened a drawer and started pulling items. Sterile polymer strips, coolant salt packs, a manual suction bulb, oxygen lines. He kept the movements clean and efficient, as if this was just another shift. Dr. Vale's voice dropped again. You are not a doctor. Calder did not look up. No. He tore open a coolant salt pack and poured it into a sterile cup. He added distilled water and stirred until the crystals softened into a cold slurry. Dr. Vale frowned. That does nothing. It buys time, Calder said. Time is all we have. The door slid open before anyone knocked. A security officer stepped in with 2 more behind him. Their uniforms were private contract, not station staff. Their badges carried a corporate crest Calder did not recognize. The lead officer looked at Dr. Vale. Move away from the patient. Dr. Vale did not move. This is my triage bay. The officer's eyes moved to Calder. And you are out of place. Calder kept his hands visible. He kept his voice quiet. He is unstable, Calder said. Move him and he dies. The officer smiled slightly, like the word dies amused him. That is not your concern. Dr. Vale's fists clenched. You cannot just take him. The officer's smile faded. We can. He stepped closer, and the 2 behind him shifted to flank the bed. Their hands rested near restraint tools, not weapons, but restraint could still ruin a lung if it was used wrong. Calder watched their angles. He watched how they blocked the exit first, not the bed. He turned his head slightly toward Dr. Vale. Tell your nurse to cut the corridor cameras, Calder said. Dr. Vale's eyes widened. She did not speak, but her gaze flicked to the nurse. The nurse hesitated 1 heartbeat, then stepped back out of the room. The lead officer took another step. Last warning. Calder lifted the cup of softened coolant salt and leaned toward the envoy's lips. He spoke as if he was talking to the patient, not the armed people. Open your mouth, Calder said. Just a little. The envoy's eyelids fluttered. A dry rasp came from deep in the chest. Calder let a small amount of the cold solution touch the tongue. The envoy gagged once, then swallowed weakly. Dr. Vale watched, confused. What is that? Cold, Calder said. It slows the lattice. The officer's patience snapped. Enough. He reached for Calder's shoulder. Calder moved first. It was not dramatic. It was a small shift, a turn, and the officer's hand closed on empty air. Calder caught the wrist and guided it down and away, using the officer's own momentum. The officer stumbled half a step and hit the bed rail with his hip. The other 2 surged forward. Calder lifted a rolling stool into their path without looking. One tripped, swore, and went down hard on one knee. The other grabbed the bed rail and tried to swing around. Dr. Vale did not scream. She stared, stunned, like her mind had fallen behind her eyes. "Doctor," Calder said. "High-flow oxygen. Now." Dr. Vale moved at last, snapping into her training. She adjusted the oxygen line with shaking hands that steadied as she worked. The lead officer straightened, furious. His hand went to his restraint tool. Calder did not wait for it to come free. He shoved the privacy screen hard, sending it into the officer's chest. The screen cracked and folded, pinning the officer against the wall for a moment. It was enough. Calder grabbed the envoy under the shoulders, careful of the airway, and slid him onto a gurney parked behind the screen. The movement was controlled, but it was still a move. Now there was no going back. Dr. Vale stared at him. "You cannot move him." "I can," Calder said. "Because I know where to move him." The officer tore free of the broken screen and lunged. Calder kicked the gurney brake off and shoved it out the side door into a staff corridor. Dr. Vale followed without thinking, pushing the oxygen cylinder as her shoes squeaked on the floor. Behind them, the officer shouted into his radio. The sound echoed in the hall like a threat that had already been paid for. Calder did not run fast. He ran smooth, controlling the gurney, keeping the envoy's head stable. They turned a corner into a narrow service passage where the lights were dimmer and the air smelled like disinfectant and old metal. Dr. Vale caught up beside him. Her voice came out tight. "Who are you?" she asked. Calder kept his eyes ahead. "Someone who does not want this station to become a grave." They reached a sealed maintenance door with no obvious handle. Calder pulled a small magnet key from his pocket and placed it at a hidden spot on the frame. The lock clicked. The door opened with a quiet sigh. Dr. Vale stared. "That door is not on any map." Calder pushed the gurney inside. "It is on mine." Inside, the room was a stripped storage bay with a portable air scrubber and a small workbench. It was not a clinic, but it could become one. Calder checked the envoy's breathing again. The rattle had softened slightly, but the chest still fought each inhale. Dr. Vale's hands hovered over the patient like she did not know where to start. "What is happening to his lungs?" she asked. Calder opened a supply case and pulled out a handheld scanner that did not look like station property. He pressed it to the envoy's throat, then along the upper chest. A simple beep pattern sounded, steady and ominous. Calder watched the readout and exhaled once. "It is microcrystal poison," he said. "Sharp lattices in warm tissue." Dr. Vale's throat went dry. "How long?" Calder answered without drama. 2 days. Maybe less. Dr. Vale's eyes flashed with anger. Why would anyone do that to an envoy? Calder looked at the bruise again. "Because envoys carry treaties," he said. "Treaties make people lose money." Dr. Vale's expression hardened. "You are not a janitor." Calder did not correct her. He did not confirm it either. He reached for a sterile polymer strip and tore it into thin lengths. He began building a crude filter mesh, the kind used for coolant lines, not lungs. Dr. Vale watched, baffled. "That will not work." "It will if we make it work," Calder said. "And if we do not let them take him." Dr. Vale swallowed. "Security will search every deck." Calder nodded. "Once. I know." He pressed the polymer mesh into a small canister and fitted it to an oxygen adapter. Then he held it up to Dr. Vale. "Put this in line," he said. "It will trap early crystals." Dr. Vale hesitated, then did it. The envoy's breathing steadied for 3 slow breaths. Dr. Vale's eyes widened. That should not." Calder's reply was dry. Halcyon Ward was built for rich people. Not for problems. Dr. Vale almost laughed, but it came out as a sharp breath. That was a joke. Calder did not look up. "Do not get used to it." A faint vibration rolled through the walls. The station's internal locks engaged, one by one, like a giant mouth closing. Calder's wrist warmed under his sleeve, a thin heat, a warning he had felt before. He pulled his sleeve back just enough to see the skin. A silver spiral scar lay there, faint in normal light. Now it looked a shade brighter, as if it remembered the shape of fire. Calder's face stayed blank. Dr. Vale noticed anyway. "What is that?" she asked. Calder covered it again. "Nothing you can treat." A metallic voice spoke through a ceiling speaker, soft but absolute. "All medical bays are now under controlled access." Dr. Vale's eyes went wide. "They are sealing us." Calder listened to the speaker's cadence. That voice was not station staff. He leaned toward the door and placed his ear close. "Boots. 3 sets. Then more." Dr. Vale whispered, "They will find this room." Calder checked the Envoy's pulse. Fast, but holding. He looked at Dr. Vale. "You know the coolant stores?" he asked. Dr. Vale blinked. "Yes." "Why?" "We need coolant salt and sterile polymer," Calder said. "And we need a clean solvent that is not on their inventory list." Dr. Vale stared. "You cannot make an antidote from that." Calder's eyes were steady. "I can make something that stops him from dying long enough to reach the real antidote." Dr. Vale's voice lowered. "Where is the real one?" Calder paused for a fraction of a second, then answered, "Careful. On this station," he said. "In the one place they think no one will look." Dr. Vale's breath hitched. "The Envoy suite?" Calder nodded. "They tried to move him there for a reason." Dr. Vale looked back at the Envoy, then at the door. Her hands tightened around. "The oxygen cylinder. You are asking me to break every rule I live by," she said. Calder's voice remained even. "I am asking you to keep your oath." Dr. Vale swallowed hard. Then she nodded once. A sharp knock hit the door. Not a polite knock. A test. Calder lifted the gurney rails and locked them. He handed Dr. Vale a small injector loaded with cold saline and coolant solution. "If his breathing spikes, use this," Calder said. "It will sting." Dr. Vale's eyes flicked up. "That is unsafe." Calder's answer was simple. "So is dying." The knock came again, harder. A voice followed, muffled through the metal. "Open the door," the voice said. "We know you are in there." Dr. Vale's mouth opened, then closed. Fear tried to rise in her, but anger beat it down. Calder moved to the side wall and lifted a maintenance panel. Inside was a narrow crawl space, barely wide enough for a person. He looked at Dr. Vale. "You can fit," he said. "I can fit. The Envoy will be hard." Dr. Vale's eyes darted to the gurney. "He cannot crawl." Calder's gaze went to the workbench, then to the air scrubber. A plan formed without visible strain. He began stripping the scrubber casing, fast and precise. Dr. Vale stared. "What are you doing?" "Building a sled," Calder said. "A silent one." The door shook. Tools scraped against metal outside. They were about to cut in. Calder lifted the scrubber base, flipped it, and secured the gurney mattress onto it with polymer strips. He slid the Envoy carefully, keeping the head stable, and strapped him down. The Envoy's eyes fluttered open again. A weak sound formed, like he was trying to speak. Calder leaned close. "You do not need to talk," he said. "Just keep breathing." The Envoy's gaze fixed on Calder for a moment. In that look was a question, and something like recognition. Calder did not answer it. He pulled the sled toward the crawl space. Dr. Vale went first, pushing the oxygen cylinder ahead. Calder shoved the sled in behind her, inch by inch. Metal screamed as the door lock failed. A sharp crack, then a slam. Calder got the last of the sled inside and pulled the panel shut. Darkness swallowed them. In the crawl space, the air was warmer and smelled like old insulation. Dr. Vale breathed hard, trying not to panic. Calder did not. He crawled forward, guiding the sled, listening to voices behind the wall as the security team entered the room they had just left. Boots thudded, heavy and angry. "They are not here," a voice said. "They went into the vents." "Track them," another voice snapped. "I want the Envoy alive enough to move." Calder's wrist warmed again, stronger this time. Dr. Vale whispered, barely audible. "How are they tracking us?" Calder kept crawling. "They are tracking me." Dr. Vale froze for half a second, then forced herself to move again. They crawled for a long minute, then another. The Envoy's breathing stayed audible, fragile but steady. Calder counted in his head. Each breath was a promise and a timer. A faint light appeared ahead through a grate. Calder reached it and pushed it open slowly. They emerged into a laundry service corridor on a lower deck. The hum of machines covered their noise. Dr. Vale pulled herself up, hair stuck to her forehead. She looked at Calder with a raw mix of awe and fury. "You planned this?" she said. Calder did not deny it. "I prepared for it." Dr. Vale's voice sharpened. "Why?" Calder looked down at the Envoy. "Because I have seen what happens when stations decide people are expendable." Dr. Vale's eyes narrowed. "And you decided not to be." Calder's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Not today." They rolled the sled behind a stack of clean linens and paused. Dr. Vale checked the Envoy's pupils and breathing, then looked at Calder again. "What is your real job?" she asked. Calder answered with the truth that was safe enough. "Salvage and recovery." Dr. Vale's expression said she did not believe him, but she did not press, not yet. A new vibration rolled through the deck, deeper than before. This time the station's voice changed. "All civilian movement is suspended," it announced. "Remain in your assigned quarters." Dr. Vale swallowed. "They are locking down the whole station." Calder's eyes tracked the corridor exits. "They are not trying to find the Envoy," he said. Dr. Vale frowned. "Then what are they doing?" Calder's tone stayed flat. "Erasing the story." Dr. Vale's hands clenched. "Who would do that?" Calder's answer came quiet. "Someone with enough money to buy silence." He pointed to a side hatch. "Coolant stores are 3 turns that way." Dr. Vale nodded and took the lead. She moved like a surgeon, precise, fast, no wasted motion. Calder followed, pushing the sled and keeping his body between the Envoy and open corridor. They moved through maintenance passages where the lights flickered. A smell of metal and cold water followed them. At the coolant store door, Dr. Vale typed a code. The panel rejected it. Her face tightened. They changed access. Calder stepped in, examined the panel, and took a thin tool from his pocket. He opened the casing with practiced ease. Dr. Vale stared. "This looks like a break-in." Calder cut her off gently. "It is a lock," he said. "Not a confession." He adjusted one connection, then another. The door clicked. Dr. Vale's breath left her in one sharp burst. Calder pushed the door open. "Move." Inside, the room was cold enough to sting. Stacks of coolant packs sat in insulated bins. Dr. Vale grabbed what she could carry. Calder grabbed sterile polymer rolls and solvent containers. A sound echoed behind them. Footsteps, moving fast. Calder's wrist warmed again. He felt the sweep like a pulse. Dr. Vale whispered, "They are close." Calder nodded once. He shoved supplies into a bag and pulled it over his shoulder, then looked at Dr. Vale. "Take the solvent and the polymer," he said. I will take the coolant. Dr. Vale hesitated. You are carrying the heavier load. Calder's eyes stayed calm. You have the hands we need. Dr. Vale swallowed, then nodded. She took the bag and moved. They exited the coolant store into a narrow corridor. A team turned the corner at the far end. This group was different. Their gear was lighter. Their movements were sharper, trained for close spaces. The lead hunter lifted a handheld tracker and smiled when it beeped. His eyes locked on Calder like a hook. There you are, the hunter said. Dr. Vale stiffened. Calder did not. He stepped forward just enough to block their line to the Envoy. You are out of your jurisdiction, Calder said. The hunter laughed once. This station is under corporate authority now. Dr. Vale's jaw clenched. That is not legal. The hunter's smile widened. Legal is for planets. Calder's voice remained flat. You are hunting a doctor and a patient, he said. That is ugly. The hunter shrugged. Ugly gets paid. The team spread out, taking angles. They were cutting. Off retreat. Calder looked at Dr. Vale without turning his head fully. Back up with the Envoy, he said. Dr. Vale whispered, what about you? Calder answered without hesitation. I will buy you time. Dr. Vale's eyes flashed with protest, then she saw his face and understood he had already decided. She backed up, pulling the sled with careful force. The Envoy's breath rattled once, then steadied. Calder moved forward. He set the coolant pack down like it was nothing. The hunter lifted his restraint tool. Hands up. Calder raised his hands slowly, then spoke calm as a flatline. You do not want to do this in a corridor full of pipes, he said. One spark and your insurance ends. The hunter's eyes narrowed, then he smiled again, meaner. We do not use sparks. Two hunters surged in. Calder moved before they reached him. He stepped aside, caught one wrist, and guided it into the wall. He used the second hunter's momentum against him, pushing him into the first. It was controlled and efficient, no show, no cruelty. The lead hunter snarled and swung the restraint tool toward Calder's ribs. Calder twisted, took the hit on his forearm, and kept his stance. Pain flashed, sharp and clean. His face did not change. Dr. Vale watched from behind, horrified. How are you still standing? She asked. Calder did not look back. Earth, he said. That was his second joke, if it counted as one. He did not make another. The lead hunter backed up one step and spoke into his radio. Target confirmed. Bring the net. Calder's wrist burned under his sleeve. The silver spiral scar was bright now, like a tiny beacon. He realized what it meant. The trackers were not only reading him. They were waking something in him. Calder's throat went dry for the first time. He had tried to keep that part quiet. Dr. Vale's voice rose. Calder, what is happening to you? Calder stepped backward, forcing the hunters to adjust. His mind ran through options and costs. Then a hiss sounded behind him. A door opened, and a small figure stepped out. A nurse in plain scrubs, not contract staff, hands up. Stop, she said. Her voice shook, but her eyes were locked on Calder. Calder recognized her. Nurse Juno Mar, late shift, the one who never asked questions. The hunter glanced at her with disdain. Move. Juno did not. She swallowed hard. That patient is an envoy, she said. If you take him, you start a war. The hunter laughed. We are preventing one. Calder stared at Juno for a heartbeat. He did not know why she stepped in. Then he saw it. Her badge was slightly crooked, as if she had put it on fast. She had come running. For him, or for the envoy, or for her own conscience. Calder made a choice. He grabbed the coolant pack again and threw it at the ceiling pipe. It hit hard. Cold fluid burst, fogging the corridor. The hunters cursed as visibility dropped. Calder used the fog like a curtain. He moved to Juno, grabbed her sleeve, and pulled her back. "Go," he said. Juno blinked. "Who are you?" Calder did not answer. He shoved her toward Dr. Vale. Dr. Vale caught Juno's arm and dragged her with the sled. They disappeared into the fog. Calder turned back to the hunters. Their silhouettes were vague now, but their breathing was loud. A net launcher clicked. Calder heard it a second before it fired. He dropped low. The net sailed over him and snagged on a pipe, tearing. Calder surged forward and slammed his shoulder into the nearest hunter. The hunter hit the wall and slid down. Calder pulled the restraint tool from the hunter's belt and snapped it in half. He threw the pieces into the fog. The lead hunter swore and swung blindly. Calder stepped in close and pressed the hunter's arm down. He leaned in, voice quiet. "You are not my enemy," he said. "You are a receipt." Then he shoved the hunter backward into the coolant fog and turned away. He did not stay to finish anything. He ran after Dr. Vale and the sled. His forearm throbbed, but his stride stayed even. They regrouped in a service stairwell that smelled like rust and bleach. Dr. Vale's chest rose and fell fast. Juno stared at Calder like she was trying to solve him. The Envoy wheezed softly, and that sound pulled all their focus back. Dr. Vale checked the filter mesh. Crystals had begun to form on it, tiny and sharp. Her face went pale. "It is real," she said. Calder nodded. "It is real." Dr. Vale's voice dropped. "Where do we go now?" Calder looked upward, listening. Footsteps above. Then below. They were being boxed in. Calder spoke without hesitation. "We go to the Envoy suite." Dr. Vale's eyes widened. "That is where they want us." Calder's tone stayed flat. "That is where the antidote is." Juno's voice shook. "How do you know?" Calder looked at her, cold but not cruel. "Because I helped put it there," he said. Dr. Vale stared. Her anger flared, then confusion. "You poisoned him?" Calder's jaw tightened. "No." He inhaled once, slow, then spoke as if cutting a knot. "I was sent to recover proof," he said. "Someone else chose poison as a distraction." Dr. Vale's voice sharpened. "Who?" Calder did not answer that yet. He could not safely. He pointed up the stairwell. "Move." They climbed, slow enough not to jolt the Envoy, fast enough not to be caught. The station's lights flickered like a heartbeat. Halfway up, the station voice returned, calmer than any human voice should be. "All medical leadership report to Council Suite immediately." Dr. Vale froze. "Council Suite? We do not have that, do we?" Calder's eyes narrowed. "Now you do." They reached the upper deck corridor and paused by a supply closet. Dr. Vale checked the Envoy again. The Envoy's eyes opened, more focused. His gaze found Calder and held. A thin whisper came out. "You." Calder leaned close. "Do not talk," he said. "You will need your breath." The Envoy's lips moved anyway. "Why help?" Calder's face stayed still, but his voice softened just enough to be human. "Because you are not the problem," he said. "You are the message." The Envoy blinked, slow. A faint calm settled into his eyes. Dr. Vale watched Calder in that moment. Something shifted in her, small but deep. It did not take words. It took choice. They moved again, hugging service routes. Juno guided them through a laundry cutout and into a quiet corridor lined with sealed rooms. Envoy suites were at the end. Each door was heavy, built to withstand panic. They reached the correct one, marked only by a small symbol. Dr. Vale's hands hovered over the panel. "It will be locked," she whispered. Calder pulled his sleeve back. The silver spiral scar glowed faintly. Dr. Vale stared. "That is a key." Calder did not deny it. He placed his wrist near the panel. The door read him like a fingerprint. A green light blinked once. The door opened. Dr. Vale's mouth parted in shock. Juno's eyes widened, and fear returned stronger. Inside, the suite looked like a hotel room designed by surgeons. Clean lines, soft light, hidden equipment. A small case sat on the central table. Its seal was intact, new. Calder walked to it without hesitation. He opened it. Inside were 3 vials in a foam cradle. Clear liquid with a faint shimmer. Dr. Vale's voice shook. "That is the antidote." Calder nodded once. And it was waiting. Dr. Vale's anger returned. Waiting for what? Calder looked at the door behind them. Waiting for the right hands to open it. A slow clap sounded from the corridor outside, one person, unhurried. Dr. Vale spun toward the sound. Calder did not flinch. A figure stepped into the doorway. Not in security gear. Not in hospital scrubs. They wore a dark coat with a medical crest stitched in silver. Their face was calm in a way that meant they had already decided what lives were worth. "Impressive," the figure said. "Very efficient. Very human." Dr. Vale's voice went cold. "Who are you?" The figure smiled gently. "Council Medical Liaison Varen Cade." Juno whispered, "We do not have a council." Varen Cade's smile stayed. "You do now." Calder's gaze locked on Varen. He recognized that calm. It was the calm of someone who could order erasure and sleep well. Varen's eyes moved to the envoy on the sled, then to Calder's wrist. "There it is," Varen said softly. "Our little silver spiral." Dr. Vale stepped between Varen and the patient. "You will not touch him." Varen looked at her with mild pity. "Dr. Vale. You are a good surgeon. That is why you will understand." Calder's voice stayed flat. "Understand what?" Varen stepped into the room, slow. "The universe is messy," Varen said. "Sometimes we need a lesson to keep it orderly." Dr. Vale's hands trembled with rage. "You poisoned an envoy to teach a lesson." Varen's expression did not change. "I gave a demonstration of leverage." Calder felt a cold anger settle in his chest. He kept it controlled. Varen glanced at the antidote case on the table. "And now you have the cure," Varen said. "You can be the hero." Dr. Vale snapped, "We will cure him." Varen nodded. "You will. Then you will hand him to my team." Juno's voice broke. "Your team tried to take him in triage." Varen smiled at Juno like she was an interesting insect. "They were hired to make noise." Calder's eyes narrowed. "So the first team was bait?" Varen's gaze returned to Calder. "Yes." Varen spoke softly, almost kind. "You see the pattern now. You are quick." Dr. Vale's voice rose. "What do you want?" Varen's answer was simple. "The envoy alive. The treaty dead." Dr. Vale stared. "You cannot kill a treaty." Varen's smile turned colder. "Treaties die when envoys lose credibility." Calder understood. If the envoy survived but looked compromised, the treaty could be voided. Varen's eyes flicked to the antidote again. "Give it to him," Varen said. "Then bring him out." Calder's voice remained calm. "Or what?" Varen looked at the ceiling. "Or the station vents open into this suite." Dr. Vale's face went pale. "You would kill all of us." Varen's eyes returned to Calder. I would remove variables. Calder made a decision. He picked up one vial of antidote. Dr. Vale's eyes flashed with relief. Then Calder did something else. He slipped the vial into his pocket and left the other two on the table. Varen's eyes narrowed. That is unwise. Calder looked at Varen. His voice stayed level. You have control of doors, he said. I have control of outcomes. Varen's smile faded. You think pain makes you special? Calder's reply was quiet. No. He gestured at the envoy. I think responsibility does. Dr. Vale's breath caught. Juno stared, shaking. Varen lifted a small device, no bigger than a thumb. Simple. Quiet. Calder's wrist burned again. The scar pulsed, like it was responding to that device. Varen noticed and smiled again. Ah, Varen said. It recognizes its owner. Dr. Vale whispered, owner. Calder's eyes hardened. He had hoped to avoid that word. Varen spoke gently, as if explaining a childish thing. That spiral is a biosignature, Varen said. It was grown into you to open doors like this. Dr. Vale stared at Calder. You were modified. Calder's face stayed still. He did not look away. Varen's voice remained smooth. You were made to recover what we cannot legally retrieve. Dr. Vale's voice shook with anger. You used him. Calder answered quietly. I used the job. Varen stepped closer, and the air felt colder. Give me the vial, Varen said. Calder's reply was flat. No. Varen tapped the remote. A faint hiss sounded in the walls. Dr. Vale's eyes went wide. Stop. Calder moved fast. He grabbed the remaining 2 vials and cracked them into a sterile cup, mixing them with the coolant salt solution he carried. Dr. Vale stared. What are you doing? Calder kept his tone even. Removing leverage. He poured the mixture into the inline filter canister, turning it into a makeshift nebulizer. Then he held it to the Envoy's oxygen line. Dr. Vale realized what he was doing and helped without being told. She adjusted flow, steady hands returning. The Envoy's chest rose. Then, slowly, the rattle softened. Varen's eyes widened for the first time. You are wasting it. Calder looked at Varen. His voice was dry. You should have brought better restraints, he said. That was joke 3. He did not make another. Varen's expression hardened. Kill them, Varen said, and stepped back. The suite door slammed shut behind Varen. Then the ceiling vent panel slid open. A low mist began to spill, thin and pale. Not poison. Not gas. Something meant to slow them, to make them compliant. Safe enough to call non-lethal, dangerous enough to ruin a lung. Dr. Vale coughed once. Juno covered her mouth with her sleeve. Calder's wrist burned, and the spiral scar pulsed like a heartbeat. The panel near the door lit up, reading him again. Calder made a choice that had been waiting in him all along. He stepped to the panel and pressed his wrist hard against it. The panel beeped. Then it changed. The door did not open. It unlocked the emergency override for the suite vents. Calder's hands moved fast, but not like a technician reading a manual. Like a person who had rehearsed this without wanting to. He twisted a lever. The vent mist stopped. Dr. Vale coughed again, then looked at him like he was both salvation and betrayal. Calder, she whispered. What are you? Calder did not answer with titles. He answered with action. He grabbed the sled rails. Move, he said. The Envoy's breathing was steadier now, but still fragile. They had bought time, not victory. The suite door clicked open, and the first contract team surged in, angry, hands ready. Calder shoved the sled forward, using it as a barrier. Dr. Vale and Juno flanked, pushing with him. The first hunter grabbed the rail. Calder drove his forearm into the hunter's wrist and broke the grip. The hunter winced and stumbled back. Calder did not follow. He kept the path clear. They burst into the corridor, and alarms began to howl, not loud, not cinematic, just relentless. The station was turning against them, or rather, someone was turning it. They ran through a junction and into a wider passage. A blast door ahead began to close. Dr. Vale's eyes widened. "We will not make it, will we?" Calder did not slow. He put his shoulder into the sled and pushed harder. The door narrowed. A gap, then a slit. Calder timed it. He slid the sled through first, then yanked Dr. Vale by the sleeve. She stumbled through. Juno followed, barely. Calder dove last. The door slammed shut behind him, cutting off the hunters. Dr. Vale stared at him, panting. "You just..." Calder flexed his forearm once, pain sharp. His face stayed calm. "We keep moving," he said. They moved into a high-spine corridor that overlooked the station's docking ring. Through the glass, ship sat dark, locked in place. A small shuttle detached in the distance, unauthorized. It vanished into the moon's shadow. Dr. Vale watched it and felt dread. "They are leaving." Calder's voice stayed even. "They are repositioning." Juno's voice shook. "What happens when they cannot catch us?" Calder looked at the glass and the ships, then answered. "They burn the station's reputation," he said. "And they bury the truth with paperwork." Dr. Vale swallowed. "We need proof." Calder nodded once. "That is why I came." They reached a cargo lift and forced it open. Inside, the space was tight, smelling of grease. Calder pushed the sled in. Dr. Vale and Juno stepped in beside it. The lift shuddered as it moved. Dr. Vale checked the Envoy. His eyes opened again, clearer. His lips moved. Calder leaned close. The Envoy whispered, barely audible. "Archive, ring." Calder's eyes narrowed. He understood. Dr. Vale whispered, "What did he say?" Calder answered, "The proof is in the archive ring." Juno blinked. "We do not have an archive ring." Calder's reply was quiet. "Not officially." The lift opened onto a storage deck lined with old containers. This was where the station kept what it did not want to admit it owned. Calder moved with purpose. He led them between containers until they reached a sealed hatch marked with faded warning paint. Dr. Vale stared. "This is restricted." Calder nodded. "That is the point." He pressed his wrist to the hatch panel. The silver spiral warmed, then cooled. The hatch opened. Inside was a narrow chamber with a single terminal and a stack of data cores in a locked case. No screens filled with logs, no long readouts. Just one red indicator that blinked like a heartbeat. A timer. Dr. Vale's throat went dry. "How long?" Calder looked at it once, then answered. 2 hours, he said. "Before the archive wipes." Dr. Vale's eyes widened. "They set a timed wipe." Calder nodded once. "That is the real clock." The poison was killing the Envoy, but the wipe was killing the truth. Juno's voice cracked. "What is in those cores?" Calder opened the case. Inside were 3 small cylinders, each sealed. He grabbed one and handed it to Dr. Vale. "Hold this," he said. "This is your proof." Dr. Vale stared at it like it weighed more than it did. "This will ruin them." Calder's voice stayed flat. "It will stop them." A soft voice spoke from behind them. "I would not be so sure." They turned. Varen Cade stood in the hatchway, calm as a blade. This time Varen was not alone. Two figures stood behind, not contract hunters. They wore sterile masks and carried compact injectors. Dr. Vale stepped back instinctively. Juno whimpered softly. Calder did not move. He watched the injectors. Varen smiled. You think you found the heart, Varen said. You found a decoy. Calder's eyes narrowed. He did not believe it. Varen lifted a hand slightly. The masked figure stepped forward. Dr. Vale whispered, they are medics. Calder replied, they are not here to heal. The masked figure raised an injector toward Dr. Vale. Calder moved. He stepped between them in one smooth motion. He caught the wrist, turned it, and pressed the injector into the wall. The injector fired into metal, useless. The masked figure stumbled back, shocked. The second masked figure came in from the side. Calder pivoted, drove his shoulder into the chest, and shoved them into a container. No dramatic violence. Just decisive control. Varen's smile faded. You are difficult, Varen said. Calder's voice stayed low. You chose the wrong station to make a lesson. Varen's eyes flicked to the timer, then back to Calder. 2 hours, Varen said. Do you think you can fight and think at the same time? Calder answered simply. Yes. He grabbed the terminal handle and pulled it open, exposing the core slot. He did not read a log. He used the Envoy's words. Archive ring. Calder slid a core into the slot and waited for one beep. The indicator changed from red to amber. Dr. Vale stared. What did you do? Calder kept his eyes on the panel. I moved the proof, he said. From erase to transmit. Varen's expression hardened. Transmit to where? Calder looked at Dr. Vale. A place you can reach, he said. A public medical board channel. Dr. Vale blinked. That channel is monitored, is it not? Calder's reply was quiet. Good. Varen stepped forward, anger finally cracking the calm. You cannot. Calder's wrist burned again. The spiral scar pulsed like a warning light. The terminal recognized him as an owner again. That was the second part of his secret. He was built to open these doors. But he could also close them. Calder slammed the terminal panel shut and turned. His face was cold. You wanted leverage, he said. Here is mine. He pressed his wrist to the hatch panel behind Varen. The hatch door began to close. Varen's eyes widened. Stop. Calder did not. The hatch sealed, cutting Varen off from the masked team. Dr. Vale stared at Calder. You locked them in with us. Calder's voice stayed even. No. He gestured to the terminal. I locked Varen out. Varen pounded on the hatch from the other side, voice sharp now. Open it. You do not understand what you are doing. Calder's gaze stayed steady on the hatch. I understand exactly, he said. Dr. Vale's hands trembled around the data core. Her eyes were wet with anger and fear, but her voice was strong. What happens if we transmit? She asked. Calder answered. The ship that hired them loses secrecy, he said. And the contract teams lose cover. Juno whispered, and we lose the station. Calder looked at the envoy, then looked back at them. We leave, he said. Dr. Vale's voice tightened. With an envoy who can barely breathe? Calder nodded. We leave with him alive. The envoy's breathing rattled again, a reminder. The poison was still there, still dangerous. Dr. Vale looked at Calder. Her voice softened for the first time. You are hurt, she said. Calder glanced at his forearm, then back at her. It is not important. Dr. Vale's eyes flashed. It is. Because you are doing this for us. Calder did not respond with warmth. He responded with truth. I am doing this because they will do it again, he said. And next time there will be no doctor willing to break rules. Dr. Vale swallowed. They moved fast. Calder led them out of the archive chamber through a side maintenance route. They reached a small docking spur used for waste disposal and emergency pods. A single compact shuttle sat there, dusty, forgotten. Calder touched the hull like he knew it. Dr. Vale stared. This is yours, is it not? Calder answered. Yes. Juno's voice shook. You planned an exit. Calder did not deny it. I plan for failure, he said. It keeps people alive. They loaded the Envoy into the shuttle carefully. Dr. Vale connected oxygen and the improvised filter. Calder set the data core case in a secure slot. He did not look at it, as if staring would invite loss. Outside the shuttle, alarms rose in pitch. Boots hammered in the distance. The first contract team had found their path again. Dr. Vale looked at Calder. Will the Envoy survive the launch? Calder looked at the Envoy, then at the improvised nebulizer. He answered. If we keep his airway cold and filtered, yes, he said. If we stop moving, no. Dr. Vale nodded, jaw set. Then she did something small. She pressed her fingers to Calder's forearm, near the bruise from the restraint tool. It was not a confession. It was a promise. I am with you, she said. Calder's face did not soften, but his voice lowered. Then stay close, he said. And do not hesitate. Juno swallowed and strapped in. Her hands shook, but she did it. Calder sat in the pilot's seat and powered the shuttle. The systems came alive with a low hum. A voice crackled through the station channel. Varen Cade, calmer again, but with anger under it. Calder Rook, Varen said. You will not leave. Calder did not reply on the radio. He did not argue with power. He acted. The docking clamp released halfway, then jammed. The shuttle shuddered. Dr. Vale's eyes widened. They locked us. Calder's wrist burned again, hotter. The silver spiral scar pulsed like it was trying to become a key. Calder pulled his sleeve back and pressed his wrist to the manual clamp control. The panel read him, hesitated, then flashed green. The clamp released. Dr. Vale stared. That scar. Calder's voice stayed flat. It is a leash, he said. It can also be a knife. The shuttle drifted out of the spur and into the docking ring lane. Lights flashed, warning lines across the bay. A security craft broke free from a nearby berth. The first contract team had teeth. Calder's hands moved steady on the controls. He did not speak. The security craft accelerated, trying to cut them off. A net launcher mounted under its nose shifted into position. Dr. Vale's throat went dry. They will capture us, will they not? Calder's reply was calm. Not if they cannot get close. He aimed the shuttle toward the ring service lattice where coolant fog still hung from the earlier rupture. The fog was thin now, but enough to interfere. The security craft hesitated, then followed. Calder cut speed suddenly. The craft overshot, trying to adjust. Calder rolled the shuttle sideways and slipped under it. No flashy spin. Just a clean move. The net fired and missed, tangling in the lattice. The craft jerked, slowed, caught. Calder pushed forward and broke into open space. The docking ring fell behind them. Dr. Vale exhaled, shaky. Juno let out a sob she tried to swallow. Calder did not celebrate. He watched the moon's shadow and the station's silhouette. Where do we go? Dr. Vale asked. Calder answered. To the nearest neutral relay, he said. We broadcast proof and request asylum. Dr. Vale's eyes narrowed. And if they deny us? Calder's voice stayed even. Then we keep moving. The Envoy coughed, then steadied. Dr. Vale checked the filter. Crystals still formed, but slower now. She looked at Calder. We bought time. We did not cure him. Calder nodded. That is why the proof matters, he said. The cure exists. They hid it. As the shuttle crossed into darker space, the terminal in the data slot beeped, one short tone. Dr. Vale leaned over to look. A simple indicator light turned from amber to green. Transmit complete. Dr. Vale's eyes filled with fierce relief. They cannot erase it now. Calder's face stayed calm, but something unclenched in his chest. Now it is public, he said. Now they have to lie in daylight. Minutes passed. The shuttle's engine hum became the only steady sound. Dr. Vale sat beside the Envoy and watched his breathing. Juno stared at the darkness outside, trying not to shake. Calder kept the shuttle on course. He did not relax. A new signal pinged on the console. Incoming. Calder opened it. A calm, official voice spoke. Unidentified shuttle, you are transmitting restricted medical evidence. Calder's voice stayed flat. It is not restricted, he said. It is a crime. A pause, then the voice returned, less cold. You are requesting asylum, it asked. Calder answered. Yes. Another pause. Then a new name appeared on the screen. Dr. Vale, the voice said. Confirm you are alive and that the Envoy is with you. Dr. Vale leaned in, voice steady. I confirm, she said. I am alive. Envoy Savan Atri is with us. He is poisoned. The official voice tightened. Understood. Hold course. A medical intercept team is en route. Dr. Vale's shoulders sagged. Juno cried quietly, relief and fear mixed. Calder did not soften. He watched the sensor range, because the next move would not stop politely. Power rarely did. A faint shape appeared on the far edge of sensors. Not a security craft. A sleek ship with no identification signal. Fast. Dr. Vale saw Calder's eyes narrow. What is that? She asked. Calder's voice stayed calm. The people behind Varen, he said. They do not want us to reach intercept. The ship closed distance. It did not broadcast. Then it did something worse. It released a spread of drones, small and quiet, designed for precision. Dr. Vale's mouth went dry. They will board. Calder's hands tightened on the controls. He measured space, speed, options. He looked at Dr. Vale. His voice was low. Listen, he said. If we are boarded, you protect the Envoy's airway. Do you understand? Dr. Vale's eyes locked on his. Yes, she said. Calder glanced at Juno. You stay behind the seats, he said. And you do not panic. Juno nodded hard, tears on her cheeks. I will not, she whispered. Calder turned back to the console. He did not have weapons. He had environment. And he had a leash that could become a knife. He pulled his sleeve back and pressed his wrist to a hidden panel under the console. The spiral scar warmed, then burned. Dr. Vale stared. What are you doing? Calder's voice stayed flat. Using what they built. The panel opened. Revealing a small canister. Emergency station grade coolant flare. Not a bomb. Not a weapon. A tool. Calder armed it and ejected it behind the shuttle. It burst into a bright cold plume, a shimmering cloud that scattered sensor beams. The drones hesitated. Their guidance wavered. Calder cut thrust and let the shuttle drift into the plume's edge. The main ship overshot, too fast, too confident. Calder pivoted the shuttle and slipped under the ship's belly where its drones could not easily aim. It was close enough that Dr. Vale could see hull markings. A silver medical crest, the same crest Varen Cade wore. Dr. Vale's voice shook with rage. They are medical. Calder replied, cold. They are ownership. The ship corrected, turning hard. Drones reformed and came again. Calder's console beeped. A second signal. The intercept team, closer now. A public medical craft appeared on sensors, identification bright and undeniable. If the attackers fired in open space now, it would be seen. That was the weakness. They needed secrecy. Calder drove the shuttle toward the intercept craft, forcing the attackers into a choice. Attack in the open, or retreat. The sleek ship hesitated. The drones slowed. Dr. Vale held her breath. Juno whispered a prayer without words. Then the sleek ship veered away, pulling drones back like fingers retracting. It did not fire. It fled. The intercept craft closed, matching speed. A voice came through the channel. Halcyon Ward Shuttle, it said. This is Neutral Medical Board Intercept. We have you. Dr. Vale exhaled, almost collapsing. We have an envoy, she said. He needs full antidote and lung care. Understood, the voice replied. Docking now. Calder guided the shuttle to the intercept bay. His hand stayed steady until the clamp engaged. Only then did he release one breath. Not relief, just acknowledgement. Docking completed. The bay opened, and a team in clean suits entered with a stretcher. Dr. Vale unstrapped the envoy with careful hands. The team lifted him and moved with precision. One medic paused and looked at the polymer filter mesh. Their eyes widened. This kept him alive, the medic said. Dr. Vale nodded. He made it, she said, and nodded toward Calder. The medic looked at Calder, startled. You did this with coolant salt and polymer. Calder's face stayed blank. It was what I had, he said. The medic shook their head in disbelief. That should not be enough. Calder's reply was quiet. It was enough to reach you. Dr. Vale stepped closer to Calder as the team moved away with the envoy. Her voice softened. You saved him, she said. You saved all of us. Calder looked at her. His eyes stayed cold, but not empty. We are not finished, he said. Dr. Vale's brow furrowed. The envoy will live. The proof is public. They ran. Calder's voice stayed flat. They ran because they lost secrecy, he said. Not because they lost desire. Dr. Vale swallowed. What happens to you now? Calder looked down at his wrist. The silver spiral scar had dimmed, but it still felt like heat under skin. The board will ask questions, he said. And Varen will try to make me disappear. Dr. Vale's jaw tightened. Then we do not let that happen. Calder studied her for a beat. Not romance spoken. A partnership chosen. Dr. Vale reached into her pocket and pulled out the single data core they still carried. The transmit is public, she said. But this is the original. Calder nodded once. That is insurance, he said. Dr. Vale held it out. You keep it, she said. Calder hesitated, then took it. His fingers brushed hers, a simple contact that carried weight. A board officer entered the bay, flanked by two neutral guards. They were not hunters. They were procedure in human form. Procedure could be used for good, or for erasure. The officer looked at Dr. Vale, then at Calder. Calder Rook, the officer said. By authority of the Neutral Medical Board, you are under protective custody. Calder's face did not change. Protective, he repeated. The officer nodded. Yes, they said. Until we finish the inquiry. Calder looked at Dr. Vale. His voice stayed low. If they separate us, keep your story simple, he said. No speeches. Dr. Vale nodded. Action, not drama, she said. Calder almost smiled. Almost. The officer gestured to Calder. Come, they said. Calder stood, ready to go, but before he did, he turned back once. Dr. Vale was watching him, steady now. Juno stood behind her, still shaking, but alive. Calder spoke, quiet, to Dr. Vale. You did not freeze, he said. That mattered. Dr. Vale's throat tightened. It mattered because you showed me how, she replied. Calder nodded once and walked with the officer. He did not look back again. Hours later, in a sterile room on the intercept craft, Calder sat alone under soft white light. No chains. No bruises beyond what he already carried. A bored investigator entered and set a small recorder on the table. Not a screen full of data, just a presence. The investigator looked at Calder's wrist, then looked at Calder's eyes. That scar is not standard, the investigator said. Who made you? Calder's voice stayed flat. The same people who tried to kill the Envoy, he said. The investigator's gaze sharpened. Names, they said. Calder shook his head once. Not yet, he said. The investigator leaned in. You are in custody. You cannot bargain. Calder's eyes did not blink. You think custody is control, he said. It is not. The investigator stared. What do you mean? Calder lifted the original data core slightly, just enough to remind them it existed. I mean you have a choice, he said. Expose them fully, or watch this happen again on another station. The investigator's jaw tightened. They looked away for a second, then back. You are dangerous, they said. Calder's voice stayed quiet. So are they, he said. The investigator exhaled and stood. We will speak again, they said. After the investigator left, Calder sat still. His forearm throbbed, but his posture did not change. He was not calm because he was fearless. He was calm because panic never saved anyone. A chime sounded at the door. Dr. Vale entered, escorted, but aloud. Her face looked tired, but her eyes were bright with purpose. She held a small medical pack. The Envoy is stable, she said. They used the full antidote. Calder nodded once. Good. Dr. Vale stepped closer and set the pack on the table. This is for your arm, she said. Calder glanced at it. I can manage. Dr. Vale's voice sharpened. Let me do my job, she said. Calder did not argue. He held his arm out. Dr. Vale cleaned the bruise and wrapped it with practiced care. Her hands were steady again. When she finished, she did not pull away immediately. Her fingers rested on his wrist for one brief moment. Not romance. A promise that she was real and here. You will not disappear, she said. Calder's voice stayed flat. That depends. Dr. Vale met his eyes. It depends on us, she said. Calder studied her for a beat, then nodded once. Dr. Vale stepped back. One more thing, she said. Calder waited. Dr. Vale's voice lowered. The Envoy asked who saved him, she said. I told him the truth. Calder's eyes narrowed slightly. What truth? Dr. Vale answered. That a human kept him alive with almost nothing, she said. And refused to let the station bury him. Calder's face stayed still, but something behind his eyes eased. Dr. Vale turned to leave, then paused at the door. Calder, she said. He looked up. Dr. Vale hesitated, then spoke carefully. If you are a leash, you can also be a key, she said. Calder's voice stayed quiet. A key opens doors, he said. A leash pulls you back. Dr. Vale nodded. Then we cut it, she said. She left. Calder sat alone again. The ship hummed softly around him. He looked at his wrist. The silver spiral scar was faint now, but it would warm again. He knew it. A light blinked on the small recorder the investigator had left behind by mistake. Not recording. Transmitting. Calder stared at it for a long second, then reached out and turned it off. He did not smile. He did not curse. He simply understood. Someone was already trying to listen. And somewhere, in the dark gap between stations, a new hand was learning his name. Calder did not leave Halcyon Ward as a hero. He left as evidence. The Envoy survived. The poison failed. And the truth, once broadcast, stopped being something they could bury. Somewhere behind corporate doors, Varen Cade would rewrite the story. But for the first time, the rewrite would have to fight daylight. Dr. Saran Vale watched the intercept ship pull away from the station's shadow. She understood the cost now. Not the bruises. Not the risk. The cost was that a person like Calder could never fully disappear again. Calder sat in a quiet room and stared at the spiral scar on his wrist. It was not a badge. It was not a curse. It was a reminder that someone had tried to turn a human being into a tool. He flexed his fingers once and forced the ache back into the background. Then he made the same choice he had made in triage. He stayed upright. He stayed useful. And he refused to be owned. Outside the hull, space stayed indifferent. Inside, a single fact remained. They tried to erase a witness. Instead, they created one. And if anyone came to pull the leash again, they would learn what Halcyon Ward already learned. A key is not the same thing as a lock. If you made it to the end, you are the kind of listener who does not look away when things get tense. And I appreciate that. If you enjoyed this story, please hit like. It helps this channel reach more science fiction fans who love high-stakes survival and hard choices. Share it with a friend who listens to science fiction while driving, working, or winding down after a long day. And if you want more full-length stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications, so you do not miss the next drop. Because out here, the dark is wide. And the only way we keep the truth alive is by carrying it together.